Welcome, friends, to an extra special episode of A VGM Journey, and I'm your host, The Messenger. The track that we're playing in today's show is Cut Man from the game Mega Man, and it was composed by Manami Matsumae. I can't believe it's that time of year again, but it's time for Masters of VGM, a big VGM podcasting event where we talk about the best of the best when it comes to VGM composing. And this year's topic is about female, trans, and genderqueer composers. And just like the past couple years, I'm bringing in 4 composers with 4 tracks each to give you guys a nice sample size of their discography. And I'm telling you, you guys are in for a real treat. I already started the show with one of her tracks, but we're going to kick things off with Manami Matsumae and play this block of songs consisting of Boss Battle from Batman Return of the Joker, Nitro Man from Mega Man 10, and A Thousand Leagues Below from Shovel Knight. That block of tracks that you just listened to, they were Boss Battle from the game Batman, Return of the Joker, followed by Nitro Man from Mega Man X, and then we ended that off with A Thousand Leagues Below from the game Shovel Knight, which all of those tracks were composed by Manami Matsumae. It's really hard to state how much of an impact Manami Matsumae had on the Mega Man series and also video game music in general. I mean, come on, she established the Mega Man sound of high energy tracks that are very rocking in nature. And with it being one of those games where you're able to pick what stage you want to play on first, it seems like for most people, they wind up playing Cutman first. So instantly, this song just hits you right at the beginning and doesn't really let go. Though she started her career in Capcom, she would quickly go freelance and work on some titles like Batman Return of the Joker for Game Boy, which I gotta say, that's a pretty underrated soundtrack. Definitely got a Sunsoft meets Mega Man kind of vibe, which really makes sense. And typically when I think of Manami Matsumae, I think of NES era music, but I find a lot of her more modern stuff to be really good, and that many years after composing the music for the original Mega Man, she would return to composing one track for Mega Man X, which was Nitro Man, which you guys listened to, alongside quite a handful of other former Mega Man composers. And when it comes to the legacy of the music of the Mega Man series, I think Nitro Man definitely fits like a glove. And a few years after that, she would collaborate with Jake Kaufman on the soundtrack for Shovel Knight, composing a few songs, including A Thousand Leagues Below, which I will say I really like that track. It's probably the most different track of everything I played from her, but you got to admit that this is pretty damn good. I think we're going to move on to our next composer, which she's pretty well known for her 90s classics, and that is Soyo Oka. And I'm going to play 4 different tracks from 4 different games, starting with Round Clear from Wario's Woods, followed by Megalopolis from SimCity. After that will be Light Plane from Pilotwings, and of course, I've got to end things off with Rainbow Road from Super Mario Kart. tracks that you just heard, they were Round Clear from the game Wario's Woods, followed by Megalopolis from SimCity. After that, that was Light Plane from Pilotwings. And then we ended that block with Rainbow Road from Super Mario Kart. And they were all composed by Soyo Oka. Even though Soyo Oka has worked on the NES and also worked on systems beyond the Super Nintendo, I've always associated her with the Super Nintendo. And that it just seems like every soundtrack that she's worked on, it just turns out really amazing. And I mean, yeah, I did start off with that Wario's Woods track, which I think that's pretty great. But you gotta admit that the back-to-back-to-back of SimCity, Pilotwings, and Super Mario Kart really packs a punch. So you got the hustle and bustle of Megalopolis from SimCity, which I gotta say, hands down, is the best track of that game. I know there's a lot of love for Metropolis, but Megalopolis definitely has that feel of people making their daily commutes, and the liveliness of a huge city is definitely conveyed on that track. And I definitely had to play Light Plane on the show since it's actually one of Carly's favorite tracks, and I think it's pretty damn good too. And of course, I had to end that off with Rainbow Road. I mean, it's Rainbow Road. And I love the entire soundtrack for Super Mario Kart from start to finish. It is really good. It's a game that, in retrospect, I think people, I wouldn't say soured on it, but they say that it pales in comparison to the rest of the series, which I say it's an alright argument to make, but I still think it holds up quite a bit. And it's definitely helped by the amazing Soyo Oka soundtrack, which, like I've been saying, it's really good stuff. I think we're going to move on to our next female composer, which I'm doubling down on Nintendo stuff, and that I find her to be the most underrated composer of all four of them, and that is Minako Hamano. And the four tracks that I'm going to play for her is Sword Search from the game Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, followed by Ridley from Super Metroid. After that will be Greenhorn Forest from Wario World, and then we're going to end that block off with staff credit from the game Brain Age 2, More Training in Minutes a Day. Got a little bit of an editor's note. The actual track from Wario World is Greenhorn Ruins. So I don't know, I kept saying Greenhorn Forest a few times. There is a track called Greenhorn Forest, but I'm not talking about that track. Those 4 tracks that you just heard, they were Sword Search from the game Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, followed by Ridley from Super Metroid. After that was Greenhorn Forest from Wario World. And then we ended that block off with staff credit from Brain Age 2, More Training in Minutes a Day. And all 4 of those tracks were composed by Minako Hamano. I'm not kidding when I say Minako Hamano is highly underrated. And I think a lot of that problem is that these tracks that she's absolutely knocking out of the park, they're from games where she collaborated with other composers. With Link's Awakening, it was Kazumi Tatake, Super Metroid, Kenji Yamamoto, and then Wario World with Norio Hanzawa. I think a lot of people are thinking it's those guys that composed some of these tracks, but in actuality, it wasn't them. It was Minako Hamano. I think starting off with Sword Search, that is another one of Carly's favorites, even though she specifically likes the version from the Switch remake. I think the Game Boy version is really good, and it is a real nice start to Link's adventure where he is searching for his sword, which winds up in the beach. And it also happens to be a soundtrack that I've grown more appreciative in recent years. I never thought it was bad or anything. I just don't think I really gave it the time of day, and now I'm paying way more attention to it, and I think it's really good. I did follow that up with possibly her most famous work, and that is Ridley's theme from Super Metroid. I mean, what a game, what a soundtrack. I know that Kenji Yamamoto became the Metroid composer guy for the series, and that his work on Super Metroid's really good, but it was also backed by really strong tracks by Minako Hamano, and this specific track has become a series staple. Definitely a different tone than the Sword Search song, for sure. I mean, there's a lot more tension and a bit action-packed, though it was weird to follow that up with Greenhorn Forest from Wario World. Definitely the most different vibe of all the tracks. Definitely more Wario-like. Though I gotta say, it's a pretty banger of a track. Though I will say, doing some research for the show, I wanted to check out different soundtracks for the composers. And I wound up just coming across this track from Brain Age 2, the staff credits theme, and was just thinking like, wow, this is some really good stuff. I have to play it on the show. And it would have been a really good show closer too, but I also kind of wanted to leave that for the last composer, which I say now is a good time to bring her up and play her tracks, and it's going to be a repeat master of VGM. It's not going to be a shocker when I say that the last composer is going to be Yoko Shimomura, and I'm going to play a track of 3 songs from her, starting with Destiny Islands from Kingdom Hearts, followed by Sancho de los Panchos from the remake of Live Alive, and then we're going to end that off with Missing Perspective from Parasite Eve. Those tracks that you just heard, they were Destiny Islands from the game Kingdom Hearts, followed by Sancho de los Panchos from the remake of Live Alive, and then we ended that block with Missing Perspective from Parasite Eve, and all three of those tracks were composed by Yoko Shimomura. I was wondering if it was going to be right for me to have a repeat Master of VGM, since I've already covered Yoko Shimomura all the way back to the very first Masters of VGM. So I've always thought of her as one of the best of the best. She's had a hand on some classic franchises like Street Fighter, Kingdom Hearts, Super Mario. I feel like in a weird way though, I feel like I kind of redeemed myself a little bit when it comes to Yoko Shimomura. It's the first time around, I didn't play anything from Kingdom Hearts, and I thought I would remedy that with playing the Destiny Islands track from the original Kingdom Hearts, which that's a pretty nice track. And I did think to follow that up with Sancho de los Panchos, specifically from the remake of Live Alive. She's also done the original soundtrack for the game, but as a Westerner, we never got the original Live Alive on the Super Famicom. And that my real exposure with the game was with the remake that came out a couple years back. And I really enjoyed that game. It is so good. And I think one of the best things about Yoko Shimomura too is that she can adapt to any kind of tone or any kind of vibe, and you walk away from track feeling really satisfied with listening to it. So you could have something light like the Destiny Islands track from Kingdom Hearts, or you can go kind of dark and spooky in a way with Missing Perspective from Parasite Eve. So it's a bit unsettling in a ways. And you just walk away from that track thinking, wow, that is a really good Yoko Shimomura track, and it just fits. Though I have no experience with Parasite Eve whatsoever, I am a bit intrigued by the game, and I know that a lot of people seem to really like that game. Not so much this sequel, but that first game, it's definitely something special. And honestly, I could probably gush about Yoko Shimomura all day, but I think it is about that time to wrap things up. If you like what you've been listening to, have your friends check out the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and now we're on TerraPlayer, which is the home for various different video game and video game music podcasts. You can email the show at vgmjourney@yahoo.com, and you could also check us out on X at VGMJourney. We also have a Discord server for the show, which I will provide a link for that in the show notes, where you could hang out with your fellow VGM journeymen and talk about games, music, and even look at some cool art. We also have a YouTube for the show, which it's nothing crazy, but I post the episodes on there, and there might be some random videos here and there. So it's definitely something worth looking into. I'm also going to play things out with one more track, and this one is pretty special. And I always talk about how I really like Super Mario RPG and the soundtrack for it. I think it's a pretty fantastic Yoko Shimomura soundtrack, and I was really glad that last year the game got a remake and that Yoko came back and did the soundtrack for that and just absolutely knocked it out of the park. It is pretty amazing. And this arrangement of what I would say one of my most favorite VGM tracks of all time got itself a really nice glow up, and I think it's really appropriate to play things out with that track. So, from the game Super Mario RPG, we're going to play the track Goodbye Geno, and this was composed by Yoko Shimomura. Have a good one, everyone.